And we'll go ahead and read those two questions here. Number one, provide at least two events that seem to indicate the Soviet Union intended to spread communism to other nations. Two, describe the specific purpose of at least one organization in the United States that was designed to investigate communism. Go ahead and scroll down in the lesson, and under point number 3, you should pull up the McCarthyism reading. So why don't you go ahead and take 30 seconds to do that right now. Please follow along in the reading as I read aloud. I'll pause to give you some time to answer those two questions that I just read. Is there anybody who needs more time to get the reading pulled up? All right, I'll go ahead and get started then. Follow along. While the end of World War II brought peace and prosperity to the United States, it also resulted in heightened tensions in the nation's relationship with the Soviet Union. At first, President Truman alternated between cooperating with the Soviet Union and trying to threaten it into acting less aggressively. However, many top politicians viewed the USSR as a hostile force that was trying to expand its empire and spread communism. Anti-communists saw a number of events as evidence that the Soviet Union intended to spread communism to other nations. These events included disagreements over the composition of the Polish government in 1945, a communist-led insurgency in Greece, the communist coup in Czechoslovakia, and blockade of Berlin in 1948, the communist takeover of China and Soviet detonation of an atomic bomb in 1949, and the breakout of war in Korea backed by communist China and the Soviet Union. So go ahead and answer that first question. We just listed off about half a dozen reasons as to why people were so concerned about the threat of communism spreading. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pick up here. The United States centered its foreign and domestic policy on containing communism. To this end, it involved itself in conflicts abroad and pursued a policy of exposing communists at home, particularly those in positions of power. But while some commentators believe that America was justified in its anti-communist drive, others argue that it overreacted and that communism, at least at home, was not as big a problem as Americans thought. The Red Scare, or fear of the spread of communism, dated back to World War I and its immediate aftermath. During these years, many people feared that Bolshevism would spread from Russia to the United States. Anti-immigrant feeling increased, as did the fear of left-wing organizations such as labor unions. Under the direction of men such as Alexander Mitchell Palmer, who was Attorney General from 1919 to 1920, hundreds of people who belonged to these organizations were arrested, imprisoned, or deported. Fear of left-wing organizations, particularly unions, was renewed in the Depression of the 1930s. After World War II, Congress passed the Taft-Hartley bill, which called for union officials to sign an affidavit stating that they were not communists. So get into question number 2. Although President Truman vetoed the act, he established the Loyalty Review Board in March 1947, which allowed the Federal Bureau of Investigation to investigate communism among federal government employees. The review continued until 1952, examined 3.2 million people, and resulted in some 2,700 people being dismissed from their posts. During the investigations, the board refused to present evidence or allow its informants to be questioned or even identified. Successful legal appeals against its findings eventually destroyed the board's credibility. Similarly, in 1947, the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, which had been formed in 1938 to investigate people thought to be disloyal to the United States, began new proceedings that launched extensive investigations to find suspected communists, notably in the movie business. In 1950, HUAC sponsored a bill requiring communists to register as foreign agents. In so doing, it was influenced by the militant anti-communism of Senator Joseph McCarthy. Go ahead and take a minute or two to answer question number 2. We're up 30 more seconds to wrap up your thoughts on question number 2, and then I'll finish off the reading. All right, I'm going to pick up and finish here. McCarthy came to prominence with his speech in February 1950, in which he alleged that 57 communists had infiltrated the State Department. Although unable to substantiate this claim, he received support from people concerned about communist interests in Korea, Eastern Europe, and China. McCarthy continued to accuse and name people as communists when he became chairman of the Government Committee on the Operations of the Senate in 1952. He was, however, discredited in 1954 during a hearing on his charges of subversion in the army. While the influence of communism increased after 1945, globally, some people argue that the U.S. response to the communist threat was extreme. Government agencies did identify cases of internal communist infiltration, but critics argue that McCarthyism was little more than a witch hunt in which thousands of innocent people were made to suffer. All right, if you scroll down on those questions, you've got questions 3 through 5, which you can answer based off of the reading, the evidence on page 3 of the document, and then your overall background knowledge. So the questions should be straightforward there. Let's do right about 8 minutes, should be plenty of time to get full answers there, and then be ready to discuss.